All right, so today we're diving into interview prep for a firefighter instructor.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It is. And we're lucky enough to have some great resources from RoleCatcher to help us out.
Their platform's designed to give you a real leg up in your job search. It's got all sorts of goodies.
Yeah, we'll be looking at their interview guide and their career guide specifically for this role.
So we'll break down the typical questions you might face, offer some insider tips, and even explore how RoleCatcher uses AI to help you tailor your answers.
So if you're ready to step up and train the next generation of heroes, let's get started. First things first, what exactly does a firefighter instructor do?
Well, they wear a lot of hats, right? They're training new recruits on pretty much every aspect of firefighting.
Okay, so we're talking like fire behavior, building, construction, all that academic stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But also the practical skills, hose handling, search and rescue techniques, the whole 9 yards.
So it's not JST about textbook knowledge then.
Nope. They're also responsible for instilling that mental toughness, that physical fitness, the unwavering teamwork you need to not just survive, but thrive in this job.
Which it's a demanding profession, to say the least.
You said it. So let's see how you can convince those interviewers that you're the right person to take all that on.
And RoleCatcher's interview guide has a great starting point. Tell us about your experience as a firefighter instructor.
Seems simple enough, but there's a real art to making this answer stand out.
Yeah, how do you go beyond just listing off job titles and certifications?
You got to bring those experiences to life. Vivid details, compelling storytelling paint a picture.
So instead of just saying, I've taught fire suppression techniques, you could say.
Something like one of the most rewarding experiences I've had was designing a live fire training exercise for a group of recruits. We incorporated elements of surprise and stress to make it feel real, and seeing them apply their knowledge under pressure was incredible.
Ooh, that's good. That's way more engaging.
Right. And don't forget, tailor it to the specific job. If they're emphasizing hazardous materials training in the description, you highlight that.
Make sure your strongest assets are front and center. Now, RoleCatcher's career guide really stresses hands-on experience for this role.
Absolutely. So if you've volunteered with fire departments or been part of a cadet program, even mentored newer firefighters, bring it up.
Shows you've been in the trenches, not just lecturing from a classroom.
Exactly. Demonstrates that real commitment to the profession. Interviewers eat that up.
Speaking of commitment, next question from RoleCatcher. How do you stay up to date with the latest firefighting techniques and procedures?
This is a big one. Firefighting is always evolving. New tech, safety regulations, best practices. It's constant.
So how do you prove you're not going to be teaching something outdated or even dangerous?
Talk about your resources. What publications do you read? Conferences you attend? Online forums you're part of?
Maybe even who you follow on social media, if they're legit fire service experts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And RoleCatcher suggests joining professional organizations like the International Society of Fire Service Instructors.
Or the National Wildfire Suppression Association. Those are good ones.
Definitely. Shows you're serious about your craft, always learning and improving.
Before we move on, I got to mention something cool RoleCatcher offers. AI-powered interview prep.
Oh, yeah, their AI tools are fantastic for helping you tailor your answers to specific roles.
So how does that work?
Well, their system, it analyzes those job descriptions and picks out the key skills and competencies they're looking for.
And then it suggests ways to highlight those in your responses.
Precisely. Takes the guesswork out of it. So for this question about staying up to date, it might suggest emphasizing certain certifications.
Ones that align with the specific requirements of that job.
Yep. It's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket, helping you put your best foot forward.
All right, let's tackle question 3. How do you ensure that your training sessions are effective and de-engaging for all participants? Now, this is where your teaching skills really come in.
It's not enough to just know the material. Got to convey it in a way that sticks.
And keeps them interested. We've all sat through some boring training sessions.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, absolutely. So you got to think about different learning styles, how people absorb information differently.
Right. Some folks are visual learners, others auditory, some got to be hands-on, moving around.
And you need to cater to all of them. So in your answer, talk about using a mix of techniques, lectures, drills, simulations.
Group exercises, maybe even real-life case studies, right?
Yep.
Make it relatable.
Exactly. And don't forget about assessment. How do you know if your trainees are actually learning?
Are you using quizzes, practical exams, just observing them during drills? What's your method?
It shows you're not just teaching, you're evaluating, adapting your approach based on feedback.
Closing the loop, ensuring the training actually hits the mark.
Now, this question about engaging participants, it's also a chance to show off your knowledge of adult learning principles.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, adults learn differently than kids, right? They come with their own experiences, their own motivations, sometimes preconceived
So
notions.
they need to see how it all connects to their work, to their lives.
Exactly. So in your answer, you might mention incorporating real-world scenarios, encouraging discussion.
Creating that respectful, supportive environment where people feel comfortable asking questions.
And RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you prepare for this specific question.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, it analyzes your practice responses, gives you feedback on your delivery, things like filler words or monotone voice.
Even lack of eye contact, which, let's face it, can be a killer in an interview.
For sure. So it's like a virtual coach helping you refine those presentation skills.
I love that. All right, we've covered 3 key questions so far, and I feel like we're just getting started.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into becoming a firefighter instructor.
We've already tackled some tough questions, but let's be honest. The interview hot seat can feel kind of like navigating a burning building itself, you know?
You're not wrong. Got to be prepared for anything.
Exactly. And it's not just about knowing the right answers. You got to show you can think on your feet, handle those curveballs, and adapt.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're going to focus on in this segment, digging into those behavioral interview questions.
Okay, I'm ready. Bring on the heat.
All right, here's a classic. How do you handle difficult or disruptive participants during training sessions?
Oh, that's a good one. It's testing how you maintain control, but also make sure everyone's still learning.
Right. Because in a regular classroom, maybe a few disruptions slide, but we're talking about firefighters here. Lives are on the line.
High stakes for sure. So how do you even begin to answer that?
Start by emphasizing your commitment to a positive learning environment, setting clear expectations from the get-go, being consistent.
Lay down the law, but fairly.
Exactly. And then share a specific example, a time you successfully dealt with a difficult participant.
Walk them through it. How did you assess the situation? What strategies did you use?
And most importantly, what was the outcome? Did the participant get back on track? Did other trainees notice and appreciate your handling of it?
It's proof you can handle the pressure.
Right.
Actions speak louder than words.
No, what if you're blanking? Can't think of a real-life example.
Yeah, those hypothetical scenarios always feel a bit forced.
Totally. You can tap into the experiences of others. Maybe you read about a tough training situation in a publication or heard a story from a veteran instructor.
So you could say something like, I once heard a seasoned instructor talk about how they handled a disruptive trainee by, and then explain the techniques, why they worked.
Exactly. It shows you're learning from the best, engaged in the community, always striving to improve.
Okay, before we move on, got to give another shout out to RoleCatcher's AI tools for this kind of question.
Oh, yeah. They're so helpful for prepping for behavioral questions in particular.
How so?
Well, their system analyzes your practice responses, gives you feedback on everything, your tone, your body language.
Even the content of your answers.
Right. So for this question about handling tough participants, it might suggest emphasizing empathy and de-escalation instead of coming off as too authoritarian.
So you strike that right balance, show you've got the temperament for the job.
Exactly, like having a personal image consultant, but for your interview W skills. Okay, question 5. How do you assess the effectiveness of your training sessions?
Seems pretty straightforward. But I bet there's more to it than just saying, I give them a test at the end.
Oh, absolutely. You need to show a deeper understanding of how you evaluate, how you use that data to improve your training.
So what are some of those effective ways to assess whether the training's actually sinking in?
Well, written tests are good for knowledge, but not always practical skills. Practical exams are great for skills, but maybe not the underlying theory.
Right. And then you've got observation checklists, simulations, peer evaluations, even post-training surveys. It's a whole toolbox.
And the key is choosing the right tool for the job. A written test for fire behavior might make sense, but for hose handling, got to see them actually do it.
And don't forget, observing them in action during simulations or drills. You're looking for teamwork, communication, problem-solving, those things a test can't always catch.
Absolutely. And give feedback in the moment. Help them identify areas to improve, reinforce those good habits.
It's all about showing you're not just teaching, you're evaluating, adapting, constantly trying to make the training better.
Now imagine they hit you with a follow-up. Give me a specific example of how you've used data to improve a training program.
Ooh, tricky. How'd you handle that?
You could say something like, I once noticed trainees struggling with a certain part of a search and rescue simulation. The data showed the scenario was too complex, so I redesigned it, broke it down into smaller steps, and their performance improved dramatically.
That's a perfect example. Shows you're not just collecting data for fun, you're using it to make decisions, drive positive change.
And of course, RoleCatcher's AI can help you prepare for this question too.
In what way?
It can actually analyze the job description and figure out which evaluation methods they value most. Look for phrases like data-driven decision-making or continuous improvement.
Ah, so you tailor your answer to match what they're looking for.
Exactly. Smart, right. Okay, ready for question 6.
Hit me with it.
How do you ensure that all participants in your training sessions are able to learn and participate regardless of their individual learning styles?
So this is about inclusivity, making sure everyone has a chance to succeed.
Absolutely. You've got trainees from all walks of life, different levels of experience, different ways of learning. Got to meet them where they are.
That's a challenge for any teacher, but especially in a field as diverse as firefighting.
For sure. So first, acknowledge that those different learning styles exist.
Yeah.
No need to get too academic. Just mention you're aware of them: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and so on.
But then give concrete examples of how you actually adapt to your training, right?
Exactly. Maybe you offer handouts, ND audio recordings for those who learn best by listening.
Or hands-on activities, simulations for those who got to be moving around to really absorb it.
You could even talk about using role-playing, great for people who thrive in social learning environments.
And create that atmosphere where everyone feels safe asking questions, seeking clarification.
Right. Establish ground rules for respectful communication, maybe a buddy system, more experienced trainees mentoring the newer ones.
Those are all great strategies. And I bet a personal anecdote about your sensitivity to different learning needs would really hit home.
Absolutely. And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can help tailor your answer to the specific employer.
How so?
It analyzes that job description, looks for anything that emphasizes diversity and inclusion. If they talk about welcoming and supportive environment or equity and access, you play that up in your response.
So it's all about matching your message to what they value.
You got it. Okay, ready for number 7? It's a bit of follow-up to the last one.
Lay on me.
How do you ensure that your training sessions meet the needs of participants with varying levels of experience?
So now it's not just different learning styles. It's also about having rookies and veterans in the same room.
Exactly. That can be tricky. How do you design a program that works for everyone without leaving anyone behind?
I imagine some kind of tiered approach would be helpful. Start with the basics that every firefighter needs, then offer more specialized modules or breakout sessions for those who are ready.
I like that. Everyone gets the foundation, but those with more experience can go deeper. Choose your own adventure firefighter training.
I love that analogy. And think about pairing those veterans up with the rookies during drills. Hands-on learning from someone who's been there.
Plus, it gives the veterans a chance to practice leadership and mentoring skills. Win-win all around.
Speaking of wins, let's move on to question 8. Tell us about a time when you had to adapt your teaching style to meet the needs of a particular group of participants.
Story time. This is your chance to really showcase that flexibility, that adaptability.
So think of a specific challenge you faced. Maybe a trainee with a learning disability, or a language barrier, even just a personality that clashed with your usual style.
Key is showing you can assess, adjust, and create a positive learning experience despite those hurdles.
What are some strategies you could highlight?
You could talk about using more visual aids, finding additional resources like translators or specialized materials, or even just collaborating one-on-one with the trainee to figure out what works best for them.
And don't forget about emphasizing your openness to feedback, showing you're always willing to adjust based on what you're hearing.
Absolutely. If you can't think of a formal training example, think broader: mentoring a colleague, coaching a team, even just helping a friend learn something new. It's all about adapting.
Good point. Okay, how does RoleCatcher's AI come into play here?
It can help you get more specific. Instead of just saying, I adapted my style, it might suggest adding, I started using more visual aids, that kind of thing.
Paint a clearer picture for the interviewers. Help them really see you in action.
Exactly. Okay, ready for the final question in this section.
Bring it on.
How do you incorporate feedback from participants into your training sessions? This one's all about continuous improvement, showing you're always trying to get better.
Feedback is crucial, right? Both for the trainees and for you as an instructor.
Absolutely. So you want to show them you actively seek out that feedback surveys, informal check-ins, and open door policy. What works for you?
And then give specific examples of how you've implemented feedback in the past. Change the lesson plan because it was confusing. Added a new simulation based on a veteran suggestion.
You're demonstrating that you're listening, you're learning, you're constantly refining your craft.
Okay, last time. How does RoleCatcher's AI help with this one?
It can point out key phrases in the job description related to feedback and improvement. Things like data-driven decision-making or commitment to excellence.
Ah, so you can emphasize those in your answer, show them you're on the same page?
You got it. We've covered a lot of ground here analyzing those tough behavioral questions, talking about how to really demonstrate your skills.
I feel like we've given our listeners a whole arsenal of tools to tackle those interviews. Welcome back for the final round of our Firefighter Instructor Interview Deep Dive.
We've covered a ton, from dissecting those tricky behavioral questions to really understanding how adults learn best.
Now it's all about those finishing touches.
Mm-hmm.
Polishing your presentation, making sure you really shine in that interview.
Exactly, because we've talked about showcasing your experience, your passion, those teaching skills you've got.
But there's another layer to it, isn't there? It's about those qualities that don't fit neatly on a resume.
Oh, yeah, those unspoken things. Interviewers are looking for leadership presence, communication style.
That genuine spark that makes people want to follow you into a burning building. Metaphorically speaking, of course.
Exactly. You want to project confidence, competence, but also that desire to help others succeed.
It's not always in the job description, but it's what makes you stand out. So how do you get that across in an interview?
It's all about storytelling, weaving those soft skills into your answers. Let's say they ask about a time you handled conflict within a team.
A classic interview question.
Right. Don't just list the steps you took. Go deeper. Talk about how you listened to each person, made them feel heard, facilitated a real conversation.
So you're showing them you're not just solving a problem, you're leading a team, building that sense of unity.
Exactly. And it's the details that sell it. Instead of just saying, I listened to their concerns, say, I made sure each person had a chance to speak without interruption. I wanted them to feel respected.
It paints a picture, right? You're showing, not just telling.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to mention one more awesome resource. RoleCatcher has their career guides.
Oh yeah, those are great. They're packed with info specific to different professions, job duties, industry trends, even salary expectations.
And they're not just generic overviews either. They're tailored to specific roles like Firefighter Instructor.
So you're getting the inside scoop on what the job really entails, right? Responsibilities, required skills, challenges you might face.
Even real-life examples of what a typical day might look like. It's like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain.
That kind of prep can really boost your confidence. Makes you sound like you already know the ropes.
And don't forget about those industry trends the career guide highlights. Things like the growing focus on wildland firefighting, or how technology is changing training simulations.
Being able to weave that into your answers shows you're not just knowledgeable, you're engaged. You're thinking ahead.
Exactly. Okay, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. We analyzed those interview questions, talked strategy, even got some insider tips from RoleCatcher.
Hopefully our listeners are feeling a lot more prepared to tackle that interview.
Absolutely. Remember, preparation is key, but don't let that overshadow your passion. Let them see that fire in your eyes, that dedication to shaping the next generation of heroes.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Good luck out there, everyone, and stay safe.